Good morning and welcome to More Tea Minister. My name is Ian. Today I'm presenting to you a double bill of tea reviews. They are both reviews of the same kind of tea, a dark tea from China called Liu Bao. Now the reason I'm presenting these reviews is because under normal circumstances you wouldn't be seeing a review of Liu Bao. It's a basket aged fermented tea that I haven't yet discovered a version of it that appeals to me. I've tried maybe 6 or 7, so it's not as if I've just tried it the once and said no more. But the problem for me is that it just doesn't suit my palate. There is a funkiness, a sort of dankness, a foustiness, as we would say here, to the taste. And I'm sure it's deliberate. It's not a problem with the tea. That simply doesn't appeal to me. However, I do know that there are two kinds of Liu Bao. There is ripe Liu Bao, which has undergone a kind of composting or a wet piling process which accelerates the fermentation. And I do know that that has a much stronger kind of earthiness, dankness, foustiness. And there is raw Liu Bao. And the raw Liu Bao, the processing means that it ages and ferments more slowly, more naturally, because it doesn't have the wet piling, or at least to that degree. And so I did a little bit of investigating. Was there some way to find a Liu Bao that either didn't have that kind of funkiness or that foustiness, or one that combined it with some other flavor profile where they actually complemented each other and the finished product in terms of flavor was actually something very enjoyable? And so I've happened across two teas where I'm pleased to say Liu Bao has become something not simply bearable and not even palatable, but actually enjoyable. And the first of these is from Yunnan Sourcing, and it is Farmer Smoked Raw Liu Bao tea in basket. It comes in 400-gram basket, so if you do find you like the tea, that's not too large a size to have kicking about. And it's from 2016. As the name Farmer and Smoked will tell you, it's a small scale production, and the distinction here is not simply the sourcing of the tea or the scale at which it's processed, but it has this additional level of being smoked, and it's the smoking aspect to it that I find marries very well with a kind of standard Liu Bao flavor profile. And so let me show you these leaves here, and I think you'll be able to grasp, I think you can probably see that. The material here is fairly coarse. That's not a criticism, it's just the sourcing of the material. We have these kinds of chunks here, which have come about through compression in the basket. And there's a lot of twiggy material, along with every now and again something like this, which is, as you can see, a leaf on a very small bit of twiglet. So it's pretty rough and coarse material, and deliberately so. It's very dark. There's nothing less dark than a chocolate brown, and I'm sure that's a combination of the fermentation, the aging as well. It's 9 years old. Plus the smoking. We're going to take a smell from this sample here, then we're going to smell it out of the bag. There's a kind of tangy quality if you smell it off the platter here, which is the lid for the gaiwan. And that tanginess is a combination of the raw Liu Bao flavor combined with the smoke. It's only when you get a sniff from the bag that you get a much clearer sense of what you're in for. In a good way, that is. So give it a shake. There is that dankness, root vegetable, celery quality to it, but it's smoother. And maybe that's what raw Liu Bao does, or maybe it's the aging. But on top of that, there is a slight bit of smoke, Over the years, this has obviously lost. Apparently, this was a very intense, smoky flavour when it was new, but naturally enough, after 9 years, some of that has faded. But the two things do go very well together. So, I did some digging around for ideal Liu Bao brewing parameters, and it's 100 degrees centigrade, so boiling water. I've got 6 grams of tea here, and we're going to brew it Eastern style in my gaiwan. We've got a transparent jug so you can see the tea. Off camera, there's a wastewater jug. We have our trusty wide-brimmed strainer, drinking cup, and the gaiwan and its lid. So let's begin. We're going to give this tea a quick rinse for about 10 seconds. I'm sure you appreciate that something that's been gently aging for 9 years might need a little bit of help to warm up, to wake up, but also to get rid of any dust. So just a wee splash of water, nothing more than that. We'll give a countdown to 10 seconds, and then we will pour it into our strainer. Not that we're going to drink it. You can already see how dark that is, and that's only after about 10 seconds. So I think we're in for a treat. I have tried this a few times. It's not a blind tasting. So let's push that a bit harder now. We'll take it up to 20 seconds. We're not going to see much change in the leaves or in the tea because there isn't really anything there that can expand or unfurl because it's largely twiggy material. So let's put that up to the full 100 mils this time. And get the lid back on that, and we'll give it 20 seconds. It was a complete shot in the dark trying this tea for the first time or buying a sample to see if I would like it. I was starting to feel a little bit, not let down by Liu Bao, but starting to feel it was something where we'd have to draw a line and say, there's no way to have success with this. But I'm pleased to say, in this first video, this first part of our double bill, I have found one that is a lot more palatable. So, smell from the lid. The root celery is there, but it's relatively gentle. Gentle enough you can actually tell there's meant to be something sweet behind it, which has come out. And there's a little bit of smoke, or a little bit of tang, which has come from the smoke. So the colour, they were already a sort of dark orange after our first full steeping. Because I'm doing 2 videos back to back, I'm not going to drink a great deal of each steep. Yes. The root vegetable kind of funk is there, but it's a lot smoother. It's going to sound odd, but you can definitely tell it's meant to be there. It's unmistakably not an accident. It's not a byproduct. You can kind of tell that that is one of the flavor profiles that you're meant to get from Liu Bao. So let's try a second one. We'll push it to 25. Let's not go any further than that because I don't want to... Oh, I pour the water straight onto the leaves and we've got a bit more colour than that last one, it seems, already. It always surprises me how dark teas, which are meant to be robust and suitable for storage and transport and further aging, it never fails to amaze me how some of them are still very sensitive to being oversteeped. Certainly Tianjian is definitely sensitive to that. What's the smell like at this point? The sweetness is really coming through with an earthiness. So the sort of funk is becoming a sweet earthiness. I think the raw quality is definitely what means you can tell what's behind the funk, which makes it sound like some kind of song, but it's not. What's the smell from the lid? Sweet, earthy, a hint of vegetable. A little brighter, but still an orange colour. And the smell, definitely more earthy than purely that sort of root vegetable quality. And sweet. I wouldn't say rich though. There's only a hint of smoke, but it does work very well together. I'm not sure if the smoke kind of tones down the earthiness or it gives it a more rounded finish, but it definitely works. So we're going to push this much, maybe past 30. This is purely seat to the pants stuff for this, and we're going to keep it to about 90 degrees in case that's why the flavour profile is a little thin. You can always tell when a tea is a little bit dilute because the flavour just runs out much more quickly in the mouth. So let's take this a bit further. Let's have a quick sneaky sniff. Sweet earth with a bit of smoke. If I'm being honest, would I know it was smoked if it wasn't written on the label? I think so. I think the brain just takes a few seconds to kind of ask to tell itself, what is that I can smell? And then eventually realise it's smoke wrapped up in something else. Funnily enough, that one, now I've been thinking about it, just definitely was smoky. So okay, let's try that steeping. Starting to take on a much more reddish quality, and what little sort of direct leaf there is has definitely unfurled. I'm not sure how much you'll be able to see of that, but that's a fairly narrow leaf that's definitely soaked up the water on the lid. Very sweet, slightly earthy. The colour, more reddish than orange, I would say. Let's see if we can get you some more light. Yeah, I think so. And we poured it onto the table then. Let's not do that. Smoke and sweet and earthy. Those three things, and they work very well together. I'm not a great fan of earthiness on its own either. When I used to smoke cigars, I didn't really enjoy earthy ones, but when you put it all together, it all rather works. I think we will call that quits. I'm sure that more steepings are available. In fact, what I might do is do a steeping even if I don't taste it, just so we can see what it's like at steeping 4. I'm going to put 100 back in, that was quite intense. Okay, so I'm not here to review this tea in a standard sense, although hopefully I've given you enough information to tell whether it's of some interest to you. If you're a fan of Liu Bao or you're a fan of smoked tea, whether this is a direction you might like to take. I'm not concerned about availability or ease of brewing. All I can say is that at last I found one of 2 Liu Baos so far that I've very much enjoyed. And hopefully, if you have the chance to try it, you will do too. So let's just have a look at the colour of this one, just out of interest. Colour-wise, off the lid, much the same. There you go. I don't think that had quite the same length of steeping. So, let me read out the full title again to get it right for you. Farmer Smoked Raw Liu Bao Tea in Basket. A raw version of Liu Bao, which is a basket aged tea. and it's small scale production, farmer, coarse material, and smoked. And all of that together makes for a very enjoyable product. So it only remains for me to say happy steeping and God bless.